Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. This is a B1 level science lesson, and today we're going to talk about summarizing findings. Now, have you ever written a lab report? And if so, what was the topic? We're also going to talk about what are the parts of a lab report. So match the part of the lab report with its description. You can pause the video, try this on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check the answers. All right, so the title page would be letter D, a page showing the title of the experiment, the student names, the date of the experiment, and the teacher's name. Abstract is A, a brief summary of the experiment, including the hypothesis, the methods used, and the main results that were found. Introduction is B, the background information, such as the reason for the experiment and the importance of the experiment. Materials and methods would be C, the materials, equipment, and way that the experiment was done. And results E, the data that was found from the experiment, tables, graphs, or charts. Here are some additional parts of the lab report. Again, you can pause the video, try these on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check the answers. So number 6, discussion, that would be H, explanation of the results of the experiment and why they are important, and any possible sources of error of the experiment. Conclusion is I, a summary of the main findings of the experiment. References, F, a list of sources used, scientific articles or textbooks. And appendices, G, additional information that is relevant to the experiment that was not included in the report. All right, so now read the sentences and then match the bold words to their meaning. We recorded the temperature readings every 5 minutes. I observed the color change in the liquid when I added the chemical. We compared the growth rates of plants watered with salt water and fresh water, and we measured the length of the plant using a ruler. So A, to look at different things to find similarities and differences. That would be to compare. To determine the size, length, or amount of something using tools. That would be measured. To write down or document information or data. That's recorded. And to examine something in detail, often to understand it better, is to observe. Here are a few more. The experiments indicated that sunlight is important for plant growth. We calculated the average speed of the ball. We identified the different rocks and then classified them into categories. We analyzed the data and found that our hypothesis was correct. So to group or categorize based on shared characteristics would be number 4, classified. To do math, to find a numerical answer, that would be calculated. To examine data or information in detail to understand it better, that would be analyzed. To recognize or name something would be identified. And to show or suggest something would be indicated. So when summarizing findings in a lab report, there are lots of expressions that we can use. Things like the data shows that, the results of the experiment demonstrates that, the research indicates that, suggests that, supports the hypothesis. It is clear from the data that, based on the data, it is likely that, we observed. And here are some other vocabulary words. A pattern is a special order that repeats over and over again. and a trend is a general direction of change. So use one of the sentence starts to create a sentence about each chart, which could be used in a science report. So you can try that on your own for each of these and then restart when you're ready to continue. Right, the passive voice. The passive voice is used in scientific writing to emphasize the action or process instead of who is doing the action. So the solution was heated to 200 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes. In this example, the passive voice focuses on the action that is done to the solution, not on who performed the action. We use be plus the past participle to form the passive. We use by to introduce the agent or the person or thing that performed the action. So here's some examples. Science is studied all around the world. The experiment was conducted by the students. The water should be heated until it boils. More research will be done in the future. All right, so you want to practice with the passive voice. So change these sentences to passive voice. So one, instead of scientists analyze the data, we would say the data was analyzed. And you could add by scientists, but you wouldn't necessarily need that. The teacher prepared the sample according to the directions. So the sample was prepared by the teacher according to the directions. Someone found a problem with the microscope. A problem was found with the microscope. The scientists conducted the experiment 3 times to ensure the results were accurate. So the experiment was conducted 3 times to ensure the results were accurate. They will collect the data over a period of 2 weeks. So we say the data will be collected over a period of 2 weeks. The students placed one plant in the sunlight and the other in the dark room. So one plant was placed in the sunlight and the other was placed in a dark room. Scientists use charts to organize the data. The data was organized using charts. And students should wear goggles when working with chemicals. So goggles should be worn when working with chemicals. All right, so now I'm going to read the summary of the findings in the science lab and how many sentences can you find in the passive voice. You can pause the video and read on your own, or you can follow along as I read. The science lab investigated the effect of temperature on enzyme activity. The enzyme was tested at different temperatures and its activity was measured. It was found that the enzyme activity decreased when the temperature increased. Thus, the results showed that the enzyme works best at a lower temperature. This means that if the temperature is too high, the enzyme may not work properly. Further research may be needed to understand more about how enzymes work. So, passive voice, the enzyme was tested and its activity was measured. It was found and further research may be needed. All right, read the sentences from other lab reports. Are they active or passive? And if they're active, change them to passive. So the organism was studied under different conditions, and it was found that it lived longer in dark environments. So that one is passive. The effect of light on plant growth was studied, and they found that the plants grew better under sunlight than under artificial light. The first part is passive. Um, and here you could say it was found that the plants grew better under sunlight than under artificial light to change this second part to passive. Scientists conducted an experiment to see if water temperature affects the growth of fish, and it was observed that the fish grew more slowly in colder water. So this part is active. Scientists conducted an experiment. So you could say an experiment was conducted by scientists to see if the water temperatures affects the growth of fish. It was observed is already passive. The effects of sugar on heart rate were studied, and it was found that sugar increased the heart rate of most participants. Both of those are passive. And they tested the soil for nutrient content, and it was determined that the soil did not have any nitrogen or potassium. So this first part is active. So we would have to change that to the soil was tested for nutrient content. And then passive modals. We use the structure modal plus be plus the past participle when writing modals in the passive voice. So you want to create a sentence about each graph using the sentence stems below. So from the data, it can be concluded that, or this data can be used to, and then create some sentences using the information shown here. Now, hedging language is used when a writer is not completely certain about information or wants to avoid making a strong statement. So match the hedging technique with the example. You can try that on your own and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. All right, so for main verbs, you could say the results appear, seem, or tend to show. Modal verbs is D. The findings might indicate, so might is a modal. Reporting verbs would be E. The report claims that. Adverbs of frequency would be A. Studies often. Find that. Adverbs and adjectives of probability would be B. It is unlikely or likely that. Adjectives of quantity would be C. Many scientists would agree that. And it phrases would be F. It can be argued that. See if you can think of some other modal verbs that could be used to soften a statement, and what are some other adverbs and adjectives of probability. So these could be things like, in addition to might, may, perhaps, and then other adverbs to show probability, um, Again, likely, it seems, I can't really think of any other between likely and unlikely. So, all right, so you want to practice with hedging language. Which sentence can you use instead? So, the experiment proved that, or the results of the experiment suggest that. So, the strong language, the data clearly shows that. And then the hedging language would be the data seems to indicate that. It is certain that could be it is likely that. The theory is absolutely true versus the theory appears to be supported by the evidence. The hypothesis is correct. Softer language would be the evidence supports the hypothesis, and the findings are clear that the findings are consistent with previous research and suggest that. So now try to change these sentences to make them softer. So instead of writing, the findings clearly show that liquid A is the most effective at killing bacteria, you could say something like the findings suggest that liquid A is the most effective. There is no doubt that salt negatively affects a plant's growth. You could say the data seems to indicate that salt negatively affects a plant's growth. All liquids in the experiment always freeze at 32 degrees. Okay, you could say the evidence supports the hypothesis that liquids freeze at 32 degrees. All right, so now we're going to read the first page of a lab report and then answer the questions. So the title is The Effect of Temperature on the Rate of Photosynthesis. Introduction. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to produce oxygen and glucose. The rate of photosynthesis is affected by different environmental factors, such as temperature. In this experiment, we investigated the effect of temperature on the rate of photosynthesis in spinach leaves. Methodology. We place spinach leaves in different beakers filled with water and expose them to different temperatures: 5 degrees Celsius, 15 degrees Celsius, 25 degrees Celsius, and 35 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. We then measured the amount of oxygen produced by the spinach leaves at each temperature in the gas syringe. So, what is photosynthesis? Well, it's the process by which plants use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to produce oxygen and glucose. So, what is being investigated? The effect of temperature on the result of photosynthesis in spinach leaves. So, what tools are being used? Beakers, water, um, probably a thermometer to tell the different temperatures, and the spinach leaves and the gas syringe. And how did the student measure the amount of oxygen produced? Um, they measured them using a gas syringe. Okay, read the results in conclusion and answer the questions. So the results showed that the rate of photosynthesis increased as the temperature increased up to 25 degrees Celsius. At 35 degrees Celsius, the rate of photosynthesis decreased. Discussion. The results of this experiment suggest that the rate of photosynthesis is affected by temperature. When the temperature is too low, the rate of photosynthesis is slow because the enzymes responsible for the process are not activated. When the temperature is too high, the enzymes denature, and thus the rate of photosynthesis decreases. And denature is a verb meaning to stop working as usual. So, in conclusion, the results of this experiment show that the rate of photosynthesis is affected by temperature. Therefore, temperature is important for plant growth. Further experiments could investigate the effect of other environmental factors on the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, so what is the meaning of up to in the first sentence? So as the temperature is increased up to 25 degrees Celsius. So it just means that the temperature does not go beyond the 25 degrees Celsius mark. What happens if the temperature is too low? Well, the rate of photosynthesis is slow. And what does it mean if an enzyme is activated? Um, well, to activate means that it starts working, it begins working. And can you find a sentence in the passive voice? Um, take a look at that. So the results of the experiment suggest that the rate of photosynthesis is affected by temperature. So that's an example of passive voice. Can you find a sentence that shows a reason? That would be when the temperature is too low, the rate of photosynthesis is slow because the enzymes responsible for the process are not activated. And can you find a sentence that shows a result? It would be, therefore, temperature is important for plant growth. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Please like, subscribe, share, and if you have any questions, leave those for me in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.